Welcome everyone to Courageous Parenting, Transforming Challenges into Opportunities. I'm Edith Wallach, and I have a pleasure welcoming a great speaker and expert, Renee Metty. Welcome.
Hi, thanks everyone. Nice to see you both.
Lovely to meet you and to hear you speak. I'm transformational leadership coach. I'm an Amazon bestselling book author and mother of three amazing children. And we are here committed to empowering parents and children by building connection with love.
Hello, everyone. I am Filsa Jabeen, mother of three beautiful children, transformational teens, and parents leadership coach. Welcome, Renee Metty.
Thank you.
So let me read your bio. Renee Metty is a seasoned educator, entrepreneur, and unique Gestalt coach dedicated to guiding parents and leaders cultivate presence, connection, and authenticity in their lives. As the founder of Cove School with Pause and Trusting Equus,
Equus.
Rennie seamlessly integrates mindful education and her powerful parenting perspective. With over 20 years of experience, she empowers you to expand your capacity for consciousness and living intentionally. Her unique approach blends practical strategies with deep self-awareness, empowering parents to navigate challenges with clarity and compassion. Amazing, amazing bio. So Renee Metty is going to talk about parenting with pause, raising conscious human in a complex world. Such a beautiful topic. So tell us more about this topic.
Yeah, parenting is, I'll back up. I've always wanted to have children ever since I was far back as I can remember, 12 or so. And my path has taken a variety of directions. But looking back and connecting the dots backwards, it's all interrelated. So parenting for me is one of the greatest gifts you can give the world in raising, little beings into conscious and contributing adults in the world. And it's probably one of the most challenging fields to be in terms of work and just living your life. Parenting, I feel like, is one of the hardest because kind of the cliche statement is there is no manual. And it's really hard to have a manual because no two people are alike.
Yeah.
And so it requires a lot of courage and bravery and just being who you are.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. So, how do you guide your children to discover their true essence and needs?
So, one of the things, as I was thinking about today and our talk and time together, is what are some of the biggest things that I would want parents to know, and what were the things that I wish I had known? And oftentimes when parents reach out, they want to know what the kids should do, or what they can do for the kids, or what are the tools and the techniques. And what I've found over the years, because I started in that place as well, is that if you parent from your essence, meaning if you know who you are, what you value, what you want for your children, what their strengths are, and get to know the child and basically get out of their way, that's the best way to guide them. And so it requires deep listening. It requires understanding yourself and understanding where your, what I call unfinished business is, the things from childhood or, even workplace experiences that caused a lot of stress in your system get held in your body. And then, I used to yell at my kids. I came from, my mom used to yell at me. And so oftentimes we are just mirroring or repeating some of the things from generations in the past. Other times it's our own stress that's coming about. And so guiding children to be who they are in their essence requires you to be who you are in your essence. And I'm a work in progress. This is all about the process and the journey, but bringing intention. So parenting with pause is really creating a pause and the space in your life so that you can choose and discern with more intention, which will create more ease and joy in your parenting journey.
Wow. So what role does mindfulness and self-awareness play in our parenting approach?
It's everything for me. It's the anchor. So before I started the Cove School, which is a mindfulness-based preschool, I came from the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast now. I came from the East Coast, and my parents immigrated from the Philippines to the US. So I'm first generation. I was definitely a minority in the school that I was attending, a Catholic school. And I would say coming out to the West Coast, I was in corporate for 5 years, and then I became an educator. I was hardworking, driven, type A, perfectionist, people pleaser. And so when I started my school, that was kind of the essence and the energy that I was bringing to the school. So it was really for families that were looking for the best preschool to get into the best elementary school, to get into the best college, and so forth and so on. And I was it 2008 when the financial crash, I had a lot of people around me going through job loss and uncertainty and experiencing depression and anxiety. And I thought, I have these kiddos that are bright-eyed and curious and had a lot of wonder and were very present in the moment. And I thought, I've always been very obsessed with human behavior and how do you come out, a baby into the world, and then your path in life, and then how does that path turn out for you as an adult? And oftentimes it's very unconscious, and there's a lot of conditioning involved with the way you were raised and the experiences you've had in life. And so when I was experiencing family and friends going through a lot of stress and overwhelm, I think I had Googled depression, anxiety, children. Like I knew, I thought, and then I deeply knew that there's got to be something out there that I could offer these children where I knew it wouldn't get rid of the baggage, but that they would be able to just navigate a little better than, what I was seeing around me. And I came across mindfulness. And so my perception of mindfulness was it was not for me. It was kind of hippy dippy. It's like, I'm here to get things done. I'm very action oriented. I prided myself on multitasking, but there was curriculum for children. So I'm like, great, I'll order the curriculum. I started implementing it, was seeing great results in the classroom with 2.5, 2.5 to 4-year-olds. And I just dove in head first. And so I took a certification. Education was very important to my family. So I was all about degrees and certifications and learning. And I do have an innate curiosity to learn. But when I found the curriculum and then found out it was very early on in the mindfulness field to be in education, especially at the preschool level, I found that you could get certified. And so through that certification process, I ended up myself falling in love with mindfulness practices and meditation and what it did for myself and allowing me to show up confidently and figuring out who I was and what my strengths are and really creating objectivity. So I didn't take things so personally, so that I could have different choices and discern the ways in which that I wanted to live my life. It completely transformed how I was executing in education. The philosophy and the values I had around education were always there, but I stopped comparing to other preschool. I stopped trying to be the best and really came from a place of presence, understanding who I was and what was my unique value that I can contribute to education in the field. And I built from there instead of trying to be the best, which required me to compare to others. And that was not my highest and best use. So
Fantastic.
your level of self-awareness is, yeah, you cannot expand beyond the level of self-awareness. So that's, and to answer the question, mindfulness and self-awareness is at the core of everything I do and how I show up.
So when you speak about your children, I can sense the connection, and you see them. And so how can you tell our audience, excuse me, how they can foster deeper connection and trust within their family?
Yeah, I think for parents, and the way that I usually start with parents is figuring out, what are your values? What do you value in the world? They're going to be very different for each family. And so we do a values exercise, and then the values become the anchor for the choices you make for your children or how to raise them. They come from a place of value and what you see in them. And it really does require you to get out of the way, because oftentimes we're parenting from a place of sometimes spite. Maybe you didn't have a good childhood. So then you're like, I'm going to do the exact opposite. That doesn't necessarily mean that's in the best interest of your child, but it's definitely the way that you didn't want to be raised. So you're going to do the opposite. And so I just help navigate building that connection and trust through listening skills, really understanding and asking the right questions of, who is your child? What's their personality? What is your signature stress response? What is their signature stress response? And a mentor of mine, God, I don't know where the original source is, but I loved it because it was very succinct, is one of my kind of main missions in the world is to alleviate human suffering. Well, how do you alleviate human suffering? By not creating it and causing it yourself. And so if you can model for your kiddos what kindness looks like, what boundaries look like, what strength looks like, you have to understand that for yourself. What do those words mean for you? What does success or a good parent mean to you? I feel language plays a big part in that. So parents thinking about the language that they use, labels. I think I have a really unique perspective on both education and parenting, and I just look at children differently. Like, there's never anything wrong. They're who they are. They're perfect exactly the way they are. They're perfectly imperfect. Nobody's perfect. So if parents can start shifting the lens and the way that they see their children, the way educators see students. I was at an open house recently for an elementary school, and I literally was cringing in my body as I overheard the kindergarten teacher talking to some parents about the program, and she kept using the phrase, even if the student is low, or our lowest students in the class. And I just don't see that in the world I don't see that in humans. It's not a lower, higher, a better or worse. It's more of a spectrum. And where are you? And so meeting children where they are, I guess, to succinctly put a very long-winded answer to that, see your kiddos where they are and move them forward from there. Meet them where they are, which again requires a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness on the part of the parent.
Yeah, amazing. What tools or practices have you found most helpful for managing your own emotions as a parent?
Definitely mindfulness and meditation. When I was in my training program, it was mentioned several times that mindfulness and meditation often are a last resort because it's slowing down, it's regulating your nervous system. And when your nervous system is jacked up, whether it's from big T trauma or little t trauma, little t meaning, I used to think trauma was like a big event or neglect or things like that in childhood, but it can be it's trauma is just your system stressed over a long period of time. So it could be work,
Yeah.
it could be a variety, a toxic relationship, it could be lots of different things. So once I started understanding that and how regulating your nervous system through, there's lots of different ways to do it. I always say there are many doorways. Figure out what works for you. But for me, creating space in my life through breathing techniques, breath work, mindfulness practices, which I believe are both a technique and a way of being, and meditation. There's many ways to do it. So I think lots of people try a particular way and it doesn't work for them. So they just rule it out completely. And so my approach is really around seeing what works for people, starting small and regulating the nervous system. Because our nervous system, they say when your nervous system is activated, it is 90 seconds before it comes down again. So right, there's good challenge and there's good stress, and then it hits a point where it's being sustained at a higher level. So in order to feel relief, that's why we like self-sabotage and we yell, is to get the bigger release. And so if we can get our nervous system back to baseline through a variety of exercise helps. I take a very holistic approach, so it's not just one thing. But for me, mindfulness and meditation really allowed me to see more clearly and adjust my behavior in order to have different outcomes.
Yeah, wonderful. So, are there any strategies you use to help your children, regulate their emotions?
Yeah, a big part of it, especially when you're working with kiddos, it's the younger children, modeling for them, having them see. So I used to be a yeller. When I developed a meditation practice and mindfulness practices, I regulated my nervous system. And so my reactions to them are now responses. Typically, I'm still human, but I really haven't yelled at my kids in over a decade. Our household is very calm. I have 3 teenagers. They're 14, 16, and 18. And the way I've parented, I'm now seeing you never know, right? When they're younger, you think a thing works and you're like, am I sure? Does this really work? But now you couldn't convince me otherwise that the environment that we created through our own presence, our language, our perspective on who each of our kiddos are had a massive impact. And so for parents that are just starting out where it feels totally impossible to not get activated or triggered or, shut down or yell or whatever your signature stress response is, I'd like to give very short, practical tips. One of which is called coming to your senses. So when you're in that moment of overwhelm, it's 5 things you can touch, 4 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And what that does is take you out of the spin that you're in, get you into your body, and allows you to slowly bring down the activation in your nervous system. So 5 things you can touch. You can touch your shirt, you can touch your hair, you can touch the couch or the table, and just bring your attention to what it feels like to touch. And then 4 things you can see, it's helpful to say it out loud or in your head and name the thing that you can see. So white lamp, gray couch, whatever the 4 things are that you can see. And then listen for 3, whether it's the humming of the dishwasher or an airplane outside or horns honking, and smell, and then taste. Maybe it's the coffee in your mouth or the garlic, or maybe you're in the kitchen and you can grab something and put it in your mouth and taste it. And the biggest thing in nervous system regulation for me is to get yourself back in your body so you can recognize what's going on when it's happening. And from there, you can start navigating what's going on in your environment.
Wow,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
that. Can you tell us one piece of advice for our parents, because many parents will be listening to this, and they want to lead with courage. What would be your advice? Where they can start?
Where they can start to lead with courage, figuring out who they are. Like what do you really value in family and your children in the world? We operate from our values, whether we're aware of it or not. And so I like to bring some consciousness to what you value and making sure your actions are aligned with your values. A really kind of practical tool that can be a little more challenging in the beginning, but is starting to shift your perspective on raising children. So that's more broadly. But if you think a specific example is, let's see, think about the things that you say to your children. I hear so many parents saying, don't or can't, you can't do that. You're starting to create the limiting beliefs for your kiddos. So the shift, the question to ask, both with your children, but also for yourself and in your parenting, is starting the question with how can I? Because that opens up possibility. How can I parent differently instead of, I can't parent in that way, or I can't meditate. How can I meditate? How can I regulate my nervous system? How, for kiddos, how can you put your shoe on? How can you put your coat on? How can you find a part-time job if you have teenagers? And so that is a core principle of mine, is how can I? And what I realized recently is that my 3 teenagers, navigating social, navigating college, navigating high school, never say they can't. When they come, if they want to hear our perspective or share something, how can I do this thing? How can I make friends with this person? Whatever the situation is. But I only really realized that in the past couple of months, that wow, that's powerful, because they will always have choice in the world. I always say you're not always going to like the choices you have, but you always have a choice.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So would you like to give a final tip to our viewers around routine, around mindfulness practice?
Yeah, I want to say, and maybe this is my own perspective, I see a lot of parents that do have fun, but in general, I think we take just life so seriously and parenting so seriously. And so it is a work in progress. You are a work in progress. I am a work in progress. So explore, stay open and receptive, and connect. Just connect. Like get out of caring so much what other people think of you as a parent. We have this lens of parenting. It's like our children are a reflection of us. Our children are our children. I always say that, it's birth to 5 is your raising years, and everything after that is tweaking. And then I think there's even some research when they're in middle school, you can like redo anything, which is what I did, redo anything that you either had learned new information or kind of messed up when they were younger, but they are who they are. I'm a firm believer in the nature and nurture. There's a balance of both, but really get to know your children the way you would get to know your best friend.
Wow, that's a good one. So I'm sure you have some free gifts. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yes. So I have the Present Parenting Playbook, which is several pages, but it goes over some ways to think about what is your philosophy and your principles around family. Sometimes we put more intention into our work. We spend a lot of time at work, but we have a child and we just kind of get into this automatic pilot, or, follow some old patterns and habits. So I like a practical approach. So they'll have some practical techniques in there, some exercises to help you start digging into your values and creating what kind of life and relationship you want with your children.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming and speaking on this topic because it's super important for our parents to learn from experts and from people who overcame several different difficulties and challenges and transform them into possibilities. That's all what we want to speak about. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to be here.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.